Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari
Kunja Bihari
Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari
Kunja Bihari
Gopi Jana Vallabha Giridharadhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Giridharadhari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare,
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare.
Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada,
Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada.
Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada.
Jaya Jaya Prabhupada,
Nectar Gaur Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nectar Gaur Hari Bol. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Dhantaraj Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki jai. Nectar of Devotion ki jai. Believe the sound. Okay. Jai Theatre Prabhu, is it audible now? Jai Theatre Prabhu, I hope it improved on your side now.
Yeah.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo 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 Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
So welcome to chapter 48. I'm glad it improved on your side, Jai Tirtha Prabhu. So we are now in chapter 48, Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. Let's please chant our prayers to the six Goswamis together. Nana Shastra Vicharanaika Nipuno Sadharma Samstapako Lokanam Mitakarino Tribhuvane Manyo Sharanya Karo Radha Krishna Padara Vinda Bhajana Nandena Mataliko Vannerupa Sanatana Rago Yugo Shri Jiva Gopala Go. I offer my respectful obeisances unto the six Goswamis, namely Sri Sanatan Goswami, Sri Rupa Goswami, Sri Raghunath Bhatta Goswami, Sri Raghunath Das Goswami, Sri Jiva Goswami, Sri Gopal Bhatta Goswami, who are very expert in scrutinizingly studying all the revealed scriptures with the aim of establishing eternal religious principles for the benefit of all human beings. Thus they are honored all over the three worlds, and they are worth taking shelter of because they are absorbed in the mood of the gopis and are engaged in transcendental loving service of Sri Sri, Radha and Krishna. So this chapter is entitled Devotional Service in Dread and Ghastliness. Yes, you heard correctly, that these can be aspects experienced by devotees in these pure states of devotion as well. So, when fear or this bhayarati is nourished within the heart of a devotee by its corresponding vibhav, it transforms into ecstatic dread. So the word is known as ecstatic dread. You'll find that at the conclusion of each of these sections, Srila Prabhupada emphasizes that this emotion of ecstatic dread or ecstatic ghastliness is not possible if there is no purity of devotion in the heart of the practitioner. So there are two aspects or two things that happen. First, there's the Ashraya Alambana, and then you get the Vishaya Alambana, which means the devotee who experiences the dread and the person or thing which is the cause of that dreadful fear. So Prabhupada explains that when a devotee feels himself to be an offender at Krishna's lotus feet, Krishna himself becomes the object of dreadful ecstatic love. And when out of ecstatic love, friends and well-wishers of Krishna apprehend some danger for him, that situation becomes the object of their dread. So in ecstatic love for Krishna, in dread, there are two causes of fear. It could either be Krishna himself or some dreadful situation for Krishna. And we find that Srila Prabhupada has explained in relationship to many pastimes of Krishna where these emotions were experienced, and we'll go through that in this chapter in detail. So, the examples of Krishna as the object of fear. Prabhupada writes, when Riksharaj realized that the person he is fighting is the Supreme Lord, he fears having offended him. Krishna is the Vishaya Alambana and Riksharaj is the Ashraya Alambana. So who is Riksharaj? As you see in this picture, he is none other than Jambavan. So you would perhaps recall that in the Ramayana, there was an ancient bear that assisted Lord Ram in the fighting against the demon Ravan. So Riksharaj or Jambavan, the king of bears, Riksharaj, king of the bears. So he had a body of a bear and he was exceptionally powerful. It's explained that he has been around for ages and ages. He's very old, but he's also very, very strong. So he's been through different ages. And in the pastime of Lord Ramachandra, he had such a desire to fight. However, on the battlefield, when they were encountering Ravan, just one backhand from Riksharaj Jambavan and Ravan fell down on his chariot unconscious. So he didn't really have a chance to expend that desire of fighting. There was no suitable opponent that he could have. So after the battle, he mentioned this to Lord Ram. He said, I have such a desire to fight, but it's not being fulfilled because even here, just with one hand, Ravan fainted, and I couldn't continue to attack him because, that's against Dharma. So Lord Ramachandra told Jambavan at that point, don't worry, Riksharaj. When I come again as Krishna, I will satisfy your desire to fight, and you will then realize who I actually am. So then you may have read in the Krishna book, or if you haven't, I highly recommend that you read the story of the Shamantaka jewel. And in this pastime of the Shamantaka jewel, you'll find that Krishna earned a second wife, who is Jambavati, the daughter of Jambavan. And here you see in this picture, he is now giving his daughter his daughter's hand in marriage to the handsome Lord Krishna. But this only occurred after like 28 or 29 days of intense battle. There was actually a jewel, the Shamantaka jewel, and Krishna was going to retrieve it because he was being wrongly accused of having killed a particular king and stolen the jewel. So in order to offset that untruth, Krishna went in pursuit of the Shamantaka jewel, which was and his it's a long story that you can read about, but Krishna found himself in the cave of Jambavan, and a fight ensued, and Jambavan fought so valiantly with Krishna, and Krishna, even though he was so young in stature, you can well imagine he put on such an incredible fight. This was like Jambavan's every desire was being fulfilled. And after the 29th day of the battle, Jambavan was so exhausted, and he finally came to his senses, and he said that it could only be Krishna that could put on such a fight. It could only be the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And then he realized with great dread that he is in such a fallen condition that he is fighting with Krishna. So he immediately begs forgiveness from Krishna, and he offers in dread, and then he gives his Jambavati, his daughter's hand in marriage, together with the Shamantaka jewel, to Krishna and his now new wife. So there's another example of fear or dread, and this is in the pastimes of the Kaliya serpent. So after Krishna sufficiently chastised Kaliya, the serpent said, in great dread, you can well imagine, I did not know your actual position, and out of ignorance I've committed such horrible offenses. When Kaliya understood Krishna's supreme position, he feared having offended him. Krishna is Vishaya Alambana and Kaliya is Ashraya Alambana. So because Kaliya exhibited this rasa of dread, then Krishna never killed this monster, but simply banished him from the Yamuna river, banished him from Vrindavan, extracting a promise from him that he would never return. So, examples of demons as objects of fear. So there are three ways in which a demon can cause Vishaya Alambana, of ecstatic fear. The first one is by seeing the demon. The second one is by hearing about the demon. And the third is by remembering. So when one sees the demon, you can well imagine the emotions of this particular ras that builds up. And Srila Prabhupada explains that by seeing the huge form of the Keshi demon, who came in the form of a gigantic horse, and witnessing some of the recent disturbances caused by him, Yashoda Mai became very fearful about Krishna's safety. So seeing this demon is Vishaya Alambana. So Yashoda is the Ashraya Alambana, by seeing the demon. Now, however, the Keshi demon didn't simply make a sudden appearance. The Keshi demon appeared in this gigantic, monstrous horse form at the borders of Vrindavan, and he was towering above all of the buildings and the huge trees. So you can well imagine his form so gigantic that he was causing so much of disturbance, and the news had spread all over Vrindavan. So when it was learned that the demon was entering Goku in an angry mood, Mother Yasoda became so anxious to protect her child that her face dried up, and there were tears in her eyes. Hearing about Keshi's angry entrance into Vraj is the Vishaya Alambana. Yashoda is the Ashraya Alambana. So the Keshi demon monster was bellowing so loudly, breaking things down, causing a big disturbance to announce his entrance, and thus wanting to strike fear or create fear in the hearts of the residents, as well as Krishna, who was just but a little baby. So Mother Yasoda, by hearing from the Vrajabasis about this demon's entrance, she was afflicted so much by this rasa. And then by remembering the demon. After the Putana witch had been killed, some friends of Mother Yasoda inquired from her about the incident. Mother Yasoda at once requested her friends, please stop, don't bring up the incident of Putana. I've become distressed just by remembering this incident. So remembering Putana is the Vishaya Alambana, and Yashoda Devi is the Ashraya Alambana. And we find that out of her deep love, this incident was like a bad nightmare that she didn't want to recall at all, out of her deep love and affection for Krishna, that anything unfavorable for Krishna was not worth remembering. All things favorable for Krishna was things that she would remember, she would compose songs, she would sing about all day, but these kind of things she simply wanted to forget. So the Anubhav, in the ecstasy of devotional service in dread, the unconstitutional symptoms are drying up of the mouth, exuberance, glancing behind oneself, concealing oneself, bewilderment, searching after the endangered lovable object, and crying very loudly. In the Vyabhichari Bhav, some other unconstitutional symptoms are illusion, forgetfulness, and expectation of danger. Other prominent Vyabhichari Bhavs for Bhayanaka Bhakti Ras are fear, death, unsteadiness, nervousness, despondency, depression, and agitation. Sthayi Bhav is the Bhairati fear, is the Sthayi Bhav of the Bhayanaka Bhakti Ras. It arises from an offense or a fearful asura, just as we just heard just now in the previous slide. Such dread is caused either by offenses committed or by dreadful circumstances. So, the other objects of dread. There's another possible Vishaya Alambana for Bhayanaka Rasa. Anyone who is powerful may be an object of dread and fear. Such persons strike fear into the heart in three ways. One, by their fearsome form, and you can think of so many demons, I'm sure. Ravan, you can think of Kamsa, you can think of Bakasura, the Denikasura. You can so many demons, all the demons that Krishna encountered in his Leela. Then by their devious nature, because these demons in their approach are very devious, they're never straightforward, like in the instance of Putana. She came in disguise, like many of the other ones did, by their awesome power. Srila Prabhupada mentions, when dread is caused by a fearful object, this fearful object is generally a person who is fearsome in his features, nature, and influence. So, who are we speaking about? Is it only the demons? No, it could also be other personalities. So, in terms of the fearsome form, the example that the Prabhupada gives is that Putana invokes ecstatic dread by her fearsome form. An example of the object which caused ecstatic dread is the Putana witch. So, even though Putana entered Vrindavan or Nandagram dressed very, very much like a goddess of fortune, bewildering the minds of anyone who saw her exquisite beauty and form. When Krishna sucked the life airs out of her, she then assumed or resumed her form as a demon, and this form extended for something like 12 miles. Huge form. And when the Vrajabasis heard her fall onto the ground with such a huge noise, and saw this gigantic form of this woman, they became utterly fearful and ran towards Nanda Maharaj and Mother Yasoda, expressing that Krishna is on the top of such a monstrous demoness. So the second one was the devious nature. So Kamsa and other wicked kings are examples of devious and mischievous natures that can invoke ecstatic dread. Dread may be caused by mischievous demoniac characters such as Kamsa. Now, we all know how devious Kamsa was, that he tried to send so many of his subordinate demons to kill Krishna, to cause disturbances in Vrindavan, simply by this mischievous, devious nature of his. Then by the third one, by awesome power, we understand, and Prabhupada is explaining, that even great demigods like Shankar or Indra are examples of great powers who may cause ecstatic dread, and it may be caused by great powerful demigods such as Indra or Shankar. So we know the pastimes where Indradev caused such dread in Vrindavan when Lord Shiva or Shankar approached Krishna to get darshan in Nandagram. Mother Yasoda, when she saw his form, she became so taken aback in this bhav that she took the baby, who was otherwise crying, into the house, and she thought that Krishna would become even more scared and start crying even more when he saw this dreadful personality. Little did she understand, only by a little later, when Purnamasi expressed to her that baby Krishna's crying can become pacified if that sadhu who actually came to your door and was turned away, not being permitted the darshan of baby Krishna, is located and brought back. And thus a search party had to be sent to find this personality and bring him back. So this is the example of dread. Ecstatic dread is not possible without love. So as we said at the beginning of this class, that only devotees with love for Krishna can experience Bhayanaka Bhakti Ras, or ecstatic dread. Demons like Kamsa feared Krishna, but their feelings cannot be described as ecstatic dread in devotional service. Even though Kamsa's feelings had Krishna in the equation, his own heart was not imbued with devotion, with love for Krishna, and thereby it is not known as Bhayanaka Bhakti Ras, or ecstatic dread. It's dread, but it's not ecstatic dread, because Krishna is not present in the equation. So then we go to the second part of this chapter, which is on the subject of ghastliness. It is understood from the authoritative sources that an attachment for Krishna because of feelings of disgust becomes present. Disgust sometimes presents a ghastly ecstasy in devotional service. So this ghastliness is also one of the symptoms of devotion towards Krishna. However, it is not in one of the higher rasas, but is experienced more with people with devotees in neutrality. So when disgust or jigupsarati is nourished within the heart of a devotee by its corresponding vibhav, etc., it transforms into ecstatic ghastliness, which is known as vipatsa bhakti ras. So, this Vishaya Alambana, Krishna, we know, is the Akila Rasamrita Murti, that he is the object of all rasas, including this particular ras, surprisingly as it may sound, ecstatic ghastliness. But Krishna in himself is not disgusting. How can he be the cause of ghastliness and disgust? So, if Krishna is the summum bonum of all things opposite to ghastliness and disgust, he is the reservoir of such sweet rasas. How can he be the cause of ghastliness and disgust? So Srila Jiva Goswami helps us understand this point. He describes that Krishna does not directly cause disgust. Things like the material world, objects of sense gratification, and the material body are immediate or direct causes of Bahir Vishaya of ghastly ras. Krishna is the indirect root cause, Mula Vishaya of the ghastly rasa. Now, as we go through this chapter and we near the end of it, we will come across the various examples of how disgust in this, all of these disgust at the material world, disgust at objects of sense gratification, disgust at accepting a material body becomes prevalent in the heart of one who is imbued by bhakti. So without Krishna as its root, emotion is not transcendental. Simply being disgusted with sex life is not a transcendental mellow. But it is transcendental mellow if that disgust is linked with one's affection for Krishna. Thus, there are two types of vishaya or ecstatic ghastliness, the root object and the superficial object. So it's not simply dry renunciation that is being spoken of here, but it is very much disgust or renunciation after one has experienced the higher taste and has renounced the lower tastes. Ashraya Alambana. So a devotee who feels a heightened mood of disgust for the material world is the Ashraya Alambana of ghastly mellow. This disgust towards sense gratification is a trademark of devotees in the neutral stage. So in Shantaras, someone will experience this, not in any one of the higher rasas. Thus, a person experiencing such ecstatic love for Krishna is almost always in the neutral stage of devotional service or Shantaras. Prabhupada writes, Srila Rupa Goswami gives an example of ecstatic ghastliness which describes the advanced devotee's genuine disgust towards sex life. So, what does he say? In this mellow of devotional service in ghastliness, the sub-ecstatic symptoms are spitting upon the consideration of one's past life, contorting the face, covering the nose, and washing the hands. So in great disgust, when one remembers one's past attractions and one's lack of attraction for Krishna, one exhibits this type of anubhav. Then the sattvika bhav, there's also trembling of the body, forcible twisting of the body, and perspiration. So all different symptoms become manifest. Vyabhichari bhav. Other symptoms which may be present are shame exhaustion, madness, illusion, frustration, humility, self-pity, restlessness, eagerness, and stunning of the body. Staibhav. The Staibhav of ecstatic ghastliness or jigupsarati disgust, which is of two types. One, vivekaja, disgust arising from intelligence, and praiki, disgust arising from direct experience of material nature's abominable qualities. So it's not, although Vivek is in reference to intelligence, when intelligence is stolen by Maya, then when a devotee then is on a higher rung of devotion or bhakti and looks back at the type of intelligence he or she possessed that was stolen by Maya, then one exhibits this type of staibhav. So what is this vivekja or this disgust at intelligence? Due to an awakening of true knowledge, one becomes disgusted with sense gratification and laments his previous absorption with it. So one considers that previously, how was it possible that I had been imagining all abominable foodstuffs to be nectarian? Alas, alas, how blunt were my senses without the holy name of Krishna, without Krishna's mercy, without being in Krishna consciousness. And then one feels that emotion. So Srila Prabhupada explains, when a devotee lamenting for his past abominable activity shows special symptoms on his body, his feeling is called ecstasy in devotional service in ghastliness. This is caused by awakening of his Krishna consciousness. So when the eyes are opened with the torchlight of knowledge, the darkness that is born of ignorance, one really cannot fathom. Wow, was I really immersed in such lowly consciousness, devoid of Krishna for so many lifetimes, so many births? Have I really been wasting all of this? And what comes to mind is a pastime of Lord Indra. Indra had been the king of heaven. However, he had some particular service to do in the material world once. And when he came down, he assumed the body of a pig. And then he had a piglet, she-pig. What do you call a she-pig? Anyhow, I forgot. But he had a she-pig, a wife, and then he had piglets. And he became completely attached to that because of the bondage that family life in the material world can actually cause one to be in, devoid of Krishna as the essential part of the equation. So Lord Brahma, out of his compassion, had to come and rescue Indra by killing his female pig and all of the little piglets, for him to then realize, because when he called him first and said, Indra, you are actually Indra, the king of heaven. You have so many celestial beauties that are cooing around you, so to speak, or eager to serve you in every particular manner at all times. Your Indra, your asan that you sit on is equipped with special shaktis. You feed on the most delectable foodstuffs of the heavenly realm. Please give up this hog existence and come back. Indra was not hearing this because he was so immersed in his material consciousness. And this, of course, was to teach us that this happens to us. So when a devotee realizes this, then they exhibit this particular bhav of being aghast at that. In this connection, there is the following statement. How can a person take pleasure in enjoyment of sex life in this body which is a bag of skin and bones? This is an example of intellectual discrimination that causes disgust. So, when one understands with intelligence, what exactly am I living in? This particular body, no matter how beautiful it is simply a different version of a bag of skin, bones, pus, mucus, urine, all abominable substances. If you simply rub your skin continuously and then inhale it, it's not a very pleasant smell. If you get cut and you just look below the surface, it's not a very pretty sight. So when a devotee realizes that I could have a spiritual body, I could have spiritual senses which can serve Krishna in so many unlimited ways. I can have a spiritual body that looks exactly as Krishna wants me to look for his particular pleasure, and thereby it would bring me immense pleasure. But yet I've chosen this variations of these bags of skin, bones, pus, urine, etc., life after life after life, 8,400,000 8,400,000 species in God knows how many different cycles of that. So the devotee experiences disgust. Srila Prabhupada comments on Vivekaja. This perception is possible only for one who is awakened to Krishna consciousness and who has become fully cognizant of the abominable nature of this material body. For as long as we think that this body is so beautiful, it is such a pleasant vehicle for the driving of my soul, we become forced by the passing of time, by disease and old age, to come to this realization, for the intellect to become awakened and to come to this particular realization of vivekja. So, prayaki refers to the direct experience of abominable qualities of the material nature. This causes the devotee to lament his fallen condition and remember the Lord. To illustrate this, Srila Rupa Goswami describes the disgust a child experiences in the womb of and his consequent yearning for devotional service. So, the example that we'll read just now is this disgust that while within the womb of the mother, the child is praying. Srila Rupa Goswami explains, and how the child prays and why is the child praying, he will tell us just now. Another example, my dear Lord, Yamaraj has placed me in a situation which is full of filthy and obnoxious smells. There are so many insects and worms surrounded by stools left by different kind of diseased persons. I've fallen into this hell, but I shall try to remember your holy names always. So in the mood of disgust, looking around and realizing the pathetic nature of one's material existence, this particular prayer is uttered. And then one realizes in that condition that the solution, the means out of it is Harer Nama Eva Kevalam Kalau Nasteva Gatir Anyata. So in conclusion, it is to be understood, Prabhupada explains, but before that, in the Nectar of Devotion, Srila Rupa Goswami explains that a fortunate child in the womb of the mother prays to Krishna like that. Oh, enemy of Kamsa, I'm suffering so much because of this material body. Now I'm trapped in this mess of blood, urine, liquid, stool within the womb of my mother. Because I'm living in such a condition, I'm suffering great pangs. Therefore, O divine ocean of mercy, please be kind to me. I have no ability to engage in your loving devotional service, but please save me. So you can, Srila Rupa Goswami is showing us the pathetic situation that we have chosen, and using our intelligence in understanding that we prayed like this while within the womb of the mother, and that we were faced with these unpalatable situations. We should now take shelter of Krishna. Then the story of liquid beauty comes to mind, that in the prayer that Srila Rupa Goswami expresses here. How can a person take pleasure in the enjoyment of sex life in this body, which is a bag of skin and bones filled with blood and covered by skin and flesh, and which produces mucus and even smells? So there's the story of liquid beauty, which you may recall, where a prince pursued a beautiful girl, and she told him that you can come to enjoy me in about a week or 2 weeks' time, and I will then be ready for you. And then he was so happy when he came at the expected time, as per her advice. As he approached her cottage, he smelt the most obnoxious smells, but his greed to enjoy her was such a driving force that he pursued. And as he neared the door, he saw someone with dark circles under their eyes, practically a bag of skin and bones, so disheveled, unkempt, and very, very not a very pleasing sight to the eye. And then he asked, where is the beautiful girl that was living here 2 weeks ago? And then the girl took him to the side of the cottage and pointed to the huge earthen pots that were filled with vomit, urine, and stool. And she said, this is what you were attracted to. This is what was all within my body that attracted you. You were not attracted to me, but you were attracted to the body, which is made of all of this liquid beauty. So Prabhupada liked very much when the devotees did the play of liquid beauty, and he spoke very highly of such plays to convey these points in the minds of people that we preach to. So this prayer of the child within the womb is so pertinent for us to keep in the forefront of our consciousness. It's explained in the Bhagavatam that the greatest fear of a devotee is falling down into the lower species of life. Because why? One may not be awarded the intelligence to realize, remember, understand, and become proactive, not to re-enter such a womb or such a situation again. Then Prabhupada says, it is to be understood that any person who is constantly engaged in chanting the holy names of the Lord, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, has attained a transcendental affection for Krishna, and as such, in any condition of life, he remains satisfied simply by remembering the Lord's name in full affection and ecstatic love. So the name, we have to practice to develop calling the name with affection. And one of the ways we do that is by, you'll find in all of the japa retreats, you're told to please make a list of all the things you're grateful for. And you can do that if you haven't yet done that, either a mental or a written list of all the things, from the oxygen that you breathe, to the water supply that you have, to the food and the association and the shelter and the kindness, the love, so many things that we are endowed with in this life. All of it is simply because who is the invisible thread that is holding all of this together and allowing us the afforded opportunity of experiencing it? It's Krishna, as he explains in the Bhagavad Gita. So, in conclusion, it may be stated that the ecstatic love for Krishna in ghastliness appears during the development of dormant neutrality into developed affection. So we should take heed of Srila Prabhupada's words here that it behooves an intelligent person to try to practice and persevere the chanting of this Hare Krishna Maha Mantra in the mood of affection and ecstatic love eventually. So I'll conclude there. If there are any questions or comments on the chat, on the WhatsApp group, or here on YouTube, please feel free to either type it or thank you very much. Shri Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu Ki Jai, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. We just have 3 more chapters to go through, 49, 50, and 51. So, and thereafter we will, and then that's the conclusion of Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. Tomorrow's Ekadashi, so I wish you all the best for that. Hare Krishna.